It is indeed our great pleasure to have our guest speaker, Professor Nico Schutte. Welcome, Prof. How are you doing?
I'm good, and thank you for allowing me to just have this debate or deliberation or discussion, as you call it, a webinar. I'm good. Thanks, Tembis, for allowing me to share some ideas and thoughts with you.
Great. I think, Prof, looking at your brief introduction in terms of your resume, a person of your caliber doesn't need much of the introduction, because anything you'll say, you'll be basically saying less and less of what you need to be able to say in terms of where you've been and what you've done. But I think because we've shared this with our visitors, they will basically see that not just that one is an academic, powerful person, but some of the awards you have actually collected over the period shows that you are a thought leader in the space that you are practicing in.
Yeah. No,
yeah, so,
thank you, Stembiso.
Yeah. So, Prof, without further ado, I'll just basically hand over to you. Today, we're discussing the very exciting topic of preparing the world for the world for the work of the digital nomads. Because obviously, as we see the changes in the way things are happening, all companies, if not most of them, are wondering how best can they take advantage of the lessons learned during the COVID-19 and implement them in their work environment. One of those aspects of lessons learned is, can they really have their employees working remotely? Is it practical? Is it beneficial? So if you were to take us through on that topic, I'll hand over to you. At a later stage, we can then open up to questions for those who are interested to pose some questions, but it's over to you, Prof.
Thank you, Stembi. So thank you, everybody. I'm not sure how many participants we have today, but yeah, thank you for allowing me to share just some ideas. This is not cast in stone. It's just some ideas and some experiences, and I think we will, like Tembisov said, we will share some ideas and some experiences and maybe collaborate on some of that. Tembiso, yes, I mean, you've opened up to say COVID-19, but I mean, before COVID-19 is just been, how can it, pushed upon us. So it's not about COVID-19. To me, it was the science was in the air. But the question is that I pose, and this is a question, like you've said, that I've been as an academic, that I've written a lot about, is that do we as HR, are we prepared? Are we agile? Are we adaptive? Because what is the importance is that we talk about agile HR, we talk about agile talent, and we're going to unbundle that a little bit. The question that I want to ask people is, what is the role of HR currently in organizations? Shouldn't we be the first to provide the signs to organizations to say, whoa, there's something in the air? And that something is that we saw the dawn of the whole thing of, you know what, there's a new terminology that we call this whole IR, fourth IR. So I'm not sure whether that's true, because fourth IR or fourth industrial revolution, it was an evolution, not for me a revolution. It was something that Hello?
Sorry, Prof, you can continue.
Thank you. So to me, it was just something that was there, but my question was, HR or the people from HR as strategic partners to the organization, did we warn organization? Did we get ourselves ready as an organization? Did we influence the organization to say technology? Or what was our role, or what is our current role, and how will our role change in the future? Because what we see as historical as HR being policy custodians with recruitment and just doing recruitment, make sure that we have bums on seat workforce. But the question is, HR is much more than that, and that we should actually build stronger cases in order for business to make a business sense, become like Ulrich and all of them talk about, advocates of, and become business acumen and become strategic partners to the business and say, you know what, we want to influence the business. And one of the things that we see is that technology is going to play a huge role in the future. Not making policy so that people cannot work on technology, make it stringent and guardians, but how is technology going to influence? And then preparing the workforce for the future to say, you know what, if technology is going to be the platform, it's going to be the medium through which we're going to work, how do we prepare the workforce for that? If we as HR do not understand technology, if we do not understand, if we are not competent even handling a computer. So those is the questions that we need to ask ourselves and say, okay, are we agile? Are we adaptive? Do we understand technology, or do we still see technology as part and parcel of a support function, and it's a support function vis-a-vis that it's IT department that looks after IT? And we've got a problem when it comes to advising the CEO on our role of what is the role, what is the impact, what is the factors that are going to change us. So those are the things that are going to change. Great. Great stuff. I don't know if there's on this Stempie, so I'm not sure whether we're going to allow questions now, or do I still continue?
You can continue, Prof. You can continue.
Okay. Yeah. So what is it that we talk about? Thank you. So what do we talk about when we say HR goes agile? To me, it's to say, you know, HR, we need to play a much more important role to prepare the world of work for the digital nomads. What does one talk about when you talk about coming to the age when we talk about digital nomads? Albert Hubert says one machine can do the work of 50 ordinary men. However, no machine can do the work of one extraordinary man. So that means we need to understand that the world of work is going to change. Although we've got machine learning and we're gonna have technology, it's all about how do we prepare man or human resources, or our human resources, our workforce working with technology. There's also a saying that currently in the COVID era, that technology is eating the world. Technology, everybody talk technology, but what does it mean to our world? As HR, we need to understand what is currently happening is that we're in a VUCA world. Now that is very important. If we can just for 1 minute focus on what does this mean for us, is that I hear people tell me, and I phone people and some friends tell me, yes, I hope when COVID is done that we can just return to normal. Now, I just want to get people to wake up and say there's no more normal. That VUCA is the new normal, that the COVID technology and how we did stuff now is the new normal. So suddenly we are jumping at technology to say, what is the answer? It's technology, but yet we don't understand the magnitude, because currently everybody's using technology just to support, just to send an email, just to Zoom. But is it really part of the fabric of the organization? Is it an integral part of the organization? And we're going to talk a little bit about creating a new culture. What is a culture of technology in the organization? And what role does HR play in creating this? So what we're talking about is to say, you know what, there's a VUCA world out there. What is this VUCA? And some of my HR colleagues and friends, if I talk to them and I ask them, tell me, how do you see VUCA? They will tell me, hey, Prof, what are you talking about? What does VUCA mean? Now, you need to understand that there's a vitality out there. It's volatile. For instance, let's think about a minute. Let's stand still for a minute about the COVID. I think if we're honest about it, we were not prepared for it because it was just quickly upon us. It was a sudden change on the world. And that's what VUCA means, volatile. Suddenly something happened. And suddenly there's a change and we call it a disruption. So suddenly there's something and it's volatile. The impact is immense on us. How do we deal now with this? How do we know that people, like you just in the opening statement, in this, people is busy working at home? What are they doing? So there's a new thing, and this is disrupting our thoughts, how we approach work. The sudden thing, it's uncertain. Nobody knows when is stage 2, when is stage 1, when is it going to stop? So this disruption, this volatile world is the new norm. So there's something that's going to say it's creating uncertainty in the minds of people. And yet, HR, we are responsible through our mechanisms, through our support structures, to make sure that people have means and they become, there's a certainty or a calmness in the organization through our training and development or whatever we're doing or bringing to the organization. Then the other thing, there is a new, and this is very important. There's a new complexity that we need to understand. It's not one tool fit all. We need to deal different with our employees. We need to deal differently with, it's not a timetable in the old studies of personnel management. We have time and motion studies where people were studied, they got a slot card, they slot it in, they come in 7:30 and they leave at 5 o'clock. It's going to be complex. Each employee is going to be treated differently. The performance management systems is going to be changing. So how do we measure performance of our staff? How are we going to measure the performance of each individual working for us? Because it's going to be complex. We need to understand that VUCA is bringing not only volatility or the sudden changes or the sudden disruptions. It not only bringing the whole thing of uncertainty, and all of us currently, if I look at myself, we're uncertain. We're not sure what's going to happen tomorrow. We're all uncertain. Then the other thing is the ambiguity, is to say, how are we going to deal with this contradictions? And it's ambiguous. Somebody is saying this tomorrow, and somebody else is saying that tomorrow, and it brings confusion in organizations. So we need to understand this as HR. We need to understand that the VUCA world, it's something that's here and it's here to stay. And how do we measure? What is it that we're going to implement in our organization in order to stabilize and bring calmness in that organization? So that is one of the thing. So what is this whole new workforce that we have to deal with? We need to understand that man and machine is going to collaborating in a new way. That man and machine is going to be generations. I mean, if we talk about generations, we have the millenniums that we talk about. We have the Z generations, and I'm not going to go into all the generational types, but you have the baby boomers, that's me, and trying to understand this new generation, the technology gurus, the technology, talking about the Silicon Valley, and all of them understanding technology while I have to deal with technology. So it's multi-generational, collaborative world that coming together in the new world of work. It's going to be diverse. If I think about what's happening global organization, it's going to be multicultural. We have to deal with that. So it's going to be multi-generational. It's going to be multicultural. How are we going to deal with different cultures, global on a global scale? So how are we going to deal with robotics, the Internet of Things? How are we going to deal with chatbots that's going to answer machines, that's going to give feedback to people, that's going to talk to people? How are we going to deal with those things? And then, like I've said, it's this millenniums, every day they're busy with different things. The expectations is different. So yeah, and the other thing is that this new world, this whole thing that we have to deal with, that we want to anchor it, but we cannot because it's going to be always on the move. It's going to be mobile, and it's going to be anywhere, everywhere, at 24/7. How are we going to deal with this new world? Like we said, we talk about the smack world. We talk about social media, everything. I think one of the biggest things, if you think about, there's a Twitter. Everybody can read you. Everybody can follow you. Everybody can post something on social media. So how are we going to deal with the smack world? The other thing is, it's mobile. You have a mobile phone, and on your mobile phone, as HR, this is a powerful tool. Do we understand this? It's mobile, but also the security that we need to train people. How do we secure? How do people have access? And what is on this mobile, and what accessibility through the mobile can I give people to my organization? Do we understand that it's going to be mobile, and the power of mobility and the mobile, the tool that we have in our hands? It's going to be analytical. So we talk about big data. We have data, we've got analytics. It can give us so much power in our hands through data and data analytics that we can make informed decisions. So decision making becomes much more vigorous, and it becomes much more research intensive, because at the end, decision makers in organization as HR, we can provide them with rich data. So it's all about analytics and the power of analytics with big data that we can sift through, and remember the algorithms of the organization and of the tool that we have. And it's all about, and some days, I mean, in my days, when people said there's going to be cloud, I was looking out the window and say, what do you mean, cloud? What does cloud mean? So everything is in the cloud. Everything that we do is going to be stored in the cloud, and it's going to be online. It's going to be there. So do we, as HR, understand this smack world? Do we social, that people in the new millenniums want to be social? They want to be active. They want to talk to each other. They want to be collaborative. They want to use their mobile phones, and they bring what they call their own devices. They are very, very, very interactive on those, and they understand analytics. They want to validate. If we do stuff, they validate it on Google, and they check it, and it's always about analytics. And yes, we just talked about, it's going to be a whole thing about what is this cloud. And yeah, I think we talked about it, and we read it in books, and the theory will tell us that it comes along. I mean, it's not a new terminology. It's not new to say that we talked about valuable assets, and we talk about a company's most valuable asset is often to refer to as human capital or talent. Now think about that. If we think about it, a company's most valuable asset, it's often referred to as human capital or talent. I mean, if we think about it now, if that is true, and think of what is the trust relationship we have? What is the caring relationship we have for this valuable asset in the new world of work? How is this going to be true? Yet we find that professional or personal development of people is often underappreciated. Think about it. We talk about it. What is the first cut we do, for instance, when COVID-19 hit organization? What was the first budget that was cut? I think the first budget was, let's for instance think training, because that's a cost saving. Leaders need to take into consideration that talent management is a strategic concern. And they need to harness this critical aspect and say, okay, how do I harness this? If it's my critical, if this is my asset, how will I harness, how will I cultivate this in this new world of work? What will I do if I do not have people? But if I have these people, if the new world of work is going to be X, Y, and Z, how do I make sure that these people are equipped in order to face this world? Because sometimes it's assumed, a lot of companies assume that the people will adapt and do not prepare people for the new world of work. It's very, very important that talent is changing in the new world of work. And remember, we just talked about the SMAC, the new talent, they want to be interactive. They talked about artificial intelligence, and they want to work alongside people who are very, very busy and adaptive in the new world of work. They don't want to work alongside people who are archaic, that do not understand. There's always this clash between these two kinds of worlds. So if people say that talent is our asset, how do we look after our assets? How do we spend money to develop this asset? So those is the very important things that we have to think about. We talk about the SMAC world, then also we talked about the digital worker. Let's for a moment ponder about what is a digital worker. What we think. The digital worker says, you know what, I don't need an office. I can work from anywhere as long as I've got my laptop, as long as I've got my mobile phone, I'm okay. And this hit the world by storm with the arrival of the fourth industrial revolution. However, what was the role that we as HR played when the fourth industrial revolution came? Were we ready for it? Were we still custodians of policies and procedures that were outdated? What was the role of technology? Or did we say that is not our role? We are HR people, so technology has nothing to do with us. That's the role of IT. Using technology as a basis, it's very important to understand that the digital worker spent a lot of time, and they spent a significant amount of time traveling around the world. They don't care where they travel. They don't care where they sit, as long as they have access to the internet, and as long as they can do their work on the computer. So that is something that we need to understand, that the digital workers and the current, or they call it also the digital warriors, don't care about an office. They don't care to go to a nice office and have an office space. They rather go to a coffee shop, sit in the coffee shop, as long as they got access to data and they can work on their computers. And one of the things is also very important. They enjoy autonomy. They want autonomy, and they want to make an impact in the work with regards to their own ideas. They don't want it to be prescribed and tell me, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to be at office 8 till 5. That's not how it works. They want to enjoy autonomy and to live and work wherever they choose, building global networks and contracts and gaining perspective from the wide range of cultural experiences. So that is very important to them. They want to have these experiences with other people, collaborating globally, work with people, networking with people, and talk about issues and solving multi-dimensional issues. So the fourth industrial revolution is the interconnection of this physical system and virtual networks, allowing technological and physical worlds to be combined and having major impact on the workforce. So it's something that we need to understand as HR. High-speed internet, cloud technology, and artificial intelligence are all affecting the velocity, the scope, and impact of change. Like we just said in the beginning when we started this, it's a disruptive role. Yes, I know in South Africa, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later, about although this is happening in globe, how do we going to adopt to this new world? Okay. On the demand side, this leads to new patterns of consumer behavior. People, I don't have the stats today with me, but just with the COVID-19, online shopping have tripled in global, how people now currently are pushed to do online shopping. So the online space, the e-commerce on online have just tripled. Okay. In the demand side, this leads to new patterns of consumer behavior. On the supply side, it drives a need to innovative new way of customer needs. So yeah, this is very, very interesting. Okay, so what's going to happen is that we understand there's going to be a new skills demand. There's going to be a totally new skills demand also for people, and we as HR need to understand a lot of reskilling need to take place in this new age, in this new disruptive age, and especially on leadership and management side as well. Because from where we come, how are we preparing our leaders? How are we preparing our managers in this disruptive age to understand the VUCA world, to understand the SMAC world, to understand technology, and what is it that it needs, what is the skill that we need in order to make this world a better world from where we live. So one of the things that we can think about that is going to change is analytical thinking. So that's going to be a total new thing, is to say analytics. So you cannot say to somebody something and don't understand that that person has access to data. Such a person can test anything online, whether what you are saying is true or not true. So there's a lot of tests that can build analytical, access to the big data. How do we use analytical or analytics as managers in order to make a better informed decision? We talk about creativity, innovation, social influence, diversity, inclusivity. So all those things become new. We talk about emotional intelligence. That's all the new skills that people will need in the new world of work. We talk about one of the things that will come more and more to the organizations that we need to prepare is the whole thing of artificial intelligence. The artificial intelligence, what is it that's going to happen with the new world of work? So artificial intelligence is going to be part and parcel of or what we call machine learning, with a focus on how supervised computers can access data and learn from it. Adaptive learning. So we're going to have machines that are going to evolve, and they're going to adapt through the algorithms that are going to change, and they're going to work alongside us, making sure that we understand how those machines or this, yeah, and it's gonna happen much quicker than we are thinking. So the other thing, the traditional office landscape, people, I think that's one of the things that are going to change forever. The traditional office landscape, it's changing and has been for quite some time. So yeah, people is going to work more flexible, and office space is going to be more like workstations. I can see that it's going to become more like workstations where people just go for specific reasons into office. No more 8 to 5 at office. Many employees, and what's happened globally is that many employees consider their local coffee shop. I mean, that is what we just talked about, is the local coffee shop is ideal work environment. And while traditional companies leaders consider remote work to be a threat, and that's a culture change that we need, a paradigm shift that we need to make, to say, you know what, you don't have to be at office. There's ways we can look, and there's ways how we can see whether somebody did his work or her work through metrics. And machines give us those metrics. We can quickly see whether people have worked or haven't done their work, okay? Remote work for every person, every organization. There's been a study done by, they call it one study, or and they discovered that 30% of companies still track somebody's, they don't have flexible policy on flexible work hours. There's no policies. So that's something that organization needs to think about, that there's going to be a movement towards more flexibility, more off-campus working. And yeah, and remember, we also say, remember, culture isn't office. Culture is a mindset. We need to change our mindset about the new world of work. It's not to say, yes, the culture is work. No, that's not a culture. That's a habit. A culture, it's a mindset to say, you know, I can do my work at home. Actually, I can do more work at home because of what's happening. Yeah, and we do understand that managing remotely can be complicated. But however, this is even more challenging when it's driven by national or directive or emergency suddenly managed, and employees are challenged to engage in each other. What's currently happening with the COVID-19 is that there's no mechanisms, no tools in place to manage the whole environment or the world of work. So it's all about something just pushes, something forces us to stay home, and now we're just trying to support students, we're just trying to support our employers or employees, we're just trying to support them through technology. So it was never done. So it was never done on a proactive way where we had tools developed in order to do our work and monitor whether we can do our work. As organizations across the world move to a partial or fully work from home environment, that's also because of a response to COVID-19. Understanding what managers need to lead remotely becomes a must. So it's an outcomes based. So what does it mean? We assist them, we get influenced by the environment, and what do we say? We say that we need to understand what is the outputs, and this is going to drive managers now to think, what is it that they want from their workers? What is it that they really want people to produce per day? And we need to think about it. We need to put some real thought in it. What is it that our employees need to do in order to fulfill their task, so that we can now monitor that? That becomes a much involved process. So it's no more performance management where your employee or your employer just say to you, go write your employee, and you did it and then score it. No, it's show me what you did. So that's a much more outcome-based approach. So, and this creates challenges and some discomfort. I can just imagine it's challenging and it's discomforting because of great deal of managers were pressured by circumstances rather than choice. So yeah, every day you go to office, and whatever happens, you've got people around you to help you, but now that might not be the case. And then you talk about the talent agility. What does it mean, talent agility? That means people, the talent, the employees that we hire to work for us must also be agile. They must be treated, like we just said, as asset, that they have the ability also to adapt to the environmental changes. So we have to focus on talent agility and deploying strategic talent transformation initiatives, even beyond typical offers that we have, or we must show a variety of solutions for ensuring organizational success in the fourth industrial revolution. Do our talent, do they understand the fourth industrial revolution? Do they have any idea what it means? Do they understand technology? I mean, we're using Zoom. What else? Teams. What else? What is the benefit of discussing Zoom? Some of us might not even know that something like this exists, that we can have meetings with Zoom, that we can have interactions with Zoom. This is just a basic tool. And this is the things that we should prepare our world to say, you know what, it's time to become digi-savvy. We need to have a savvy or what we call a digital emotion intelligence, like emotional intelligence. We need to become digital intelligent, to say this is no more just a technology department, but all of us, and HR should take the lead in order to get people to understand this new role that they have and new skill that they need to learn. Digi-savvy isn't just tech anymore. Through fourth industrial revolution, HR professionals need to have a much broader view of the organization, from product development to manufacturing to marketing. They need to understand the value chain. They need to understand what is business all about and what is it that we can contribute in order to make sure that people have the tools to do their work. But if we as HR do not understand it, if we do not have the savvy, how can we train other people? How can we make people to understand this new world of work? It must be help organizations. So we must be the custodians. We must be the advocates to transform our hiring practice, our recruitment practices, our development practices, and also how we manage our people. So we must be the custodians. We must be the advocates on how is it that we're going to recruit our people. How will we retain our people? How will we develop our people? And then also, how will we manage our people in this new world of work? So it's very, very important. In a new world of work, HR must become what we call tech savvy or technology intelligent. It's very important. How do they apply the general principles without adopting, they don't have to be coders. We don't say you must be a coder or you must be a technology guru. That's not what we are saying. But we must understand the value of technology to the business case in order to make sure that we get the right people to do the job. Move away from policy champions, a rule and planning-based approach towards a straightforward and uncomplicated models driven by feedback from employees. So instead of what we talk about, the champions, the policy champions, and we are reactive. So something happened and then we write a policy and then we guard those policies. Rather be proactive and influencing policy through what we experience, what we see is going to happen in the environment, and how do we see that organizations need to adapt to these new changes. The new paradigm has really taken off in the area of performance management. In 2017, Deloitte surveyed 79 of global executives and rated agile performance management as a high organizational priority. Already in 2017, Deloitte did a study that says, you know what, we need to become agile, we need to become adaptive when it comes to, we need to come up with an innovative manner or model that we're going to measure performance in this new world of work. So it's not going to be business as usual. So that's going to be a very different, this is going to be a different ball game that we're going to play. Because HR touches every aspect and every employee of an organization, its response transformation may be even more extensive and more difficult than the change in other functions. That is very important. As HR, we are dealing with the assets of the organization. We are dealing with the talent of the organization. We are dealing with the heart and soul of the organization. Remember, it's not the money, although a lot of people think it's money. It's the people that's making the money for the organization. And if we do not understand that as HR, we're actually dealing with everything, because we're dealing with people who must make the money, we must make better decisions. And if we don't understand that, then we have a problem. So organizations are challenged to address this new age and must confront. Just think about the psychological impact that COVID-19 has now on executives. Just think about that. Do we have our awareness? Do we have our programs ready in order to deal with this anxiety, COVID-19? How are we as HR going to go when we get back to our organization? Are we already busy dealing with it? Are we already planning for it? Are we ready when the COVID-19 is gone to prepare our organizations for this new age or this new organizational model? So the new process is also going to be to an attempt to move away from performance as an event-driven. Remember, there's an event, 3 monthly, quarterly, an event-driven conversation agenda, which focuses on goal setting. What is your goals that you want? Career discussion, mid-year performance, all those reviews that we have we have to think about new models, which say, remember we just talked about the millenniums, we talk about a new approach, social interaction. What is this new model? How's this new model going to look when it comes to performance, the ongoing dialogue? And we need to discuss this as HR people to say, okay, you know what is this model? What are we measuring when it comes to performance? Do we inherit the practices? Do we copy and paste other people? What is this new model when it comes to our people? How are we going to measure, even in a higher education institution, how are we going to measure the new examen, for instance? It's not going to be anymore a sit-in examination where people or students come in a hall and they write examination. It's going to be totally different. So we need to think about that. What is it that we're going to measure at the end of the day? How are we going to implement those things? So yeah, that's going to be very important. So we talk about remote working or flexible working is going to be a new norm. So that's going to be very, very important. So they talk about in a new world of work that flexibility is key. So no more than ever employees need, and they need information. If we talk flexibility, what does that mean? How is that going to influence me? How is it going to influence organization? So organization need to constantly communicate, and this is very important. People like to communicate. They got WhatsApp, we got all the social groupings. Do organization communicate with the employees, or is the organization silent because the manager do not have a management meeting and the people cannot attend the meetings because of face-to-face? What is this new way? How are we communicating with our employees? So yeah, organizations, and this is something that globally is changing, that organizations appoint a communication, or so they call organization needs someone who can talk about and help reduce employees' fears, as well as deal with logistical concerns. So what does that mean? We need constant communication in this new world of work. Constant communication. And we need to adapt tools that says that let's communicate with our employees, because the tools are there. Communication mechanisms are there so that people know. And what is the succession planning? How are we going to build succession planning and operate position and understand the competencies of one's human capital? So that is, succession planning becomes very, very important. But the question is, how are we going to build succession plans in the new world of work? So those is the questions. So yeah, it should clearly articulate the company's culture. So we talked about culture, it's a mindset. So if it comes to this new world of work, what is our policy status currently? What does our policy say? 8 to 5, 7 to 5, 7 to 6, what does it say? So we need to come up with something new. So what is the culture currently to everyone in your organization? So it should be clearly about expectation. What do we expect from our employees? What is it clearly stipulated, or do we have a job description but the expectations is not clear? How do we measure our performance? What is the current system or performance management system that we are using? How do we measure that? And then what details must be included and what must not be included? So yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting. So what does it mean for us? It needs to be an environment that we encourage open communication and feedback. It must be an environment where we want people to collaborate with each other, and want an environment where people can produce outcomes, and the outcomes can be measured, and it can make a difference in the strategic objectives of the organization. And the one thing that the new world of work is going to create is an engagement atmosphere. People want to engage. They want to talk to each other. They really, really want an engagement. So yeah, it's all those things. So I'm not sure how we're doing on time, Stemiso. So shall we just lock it here for meantime and just ask some questions?
Yes, Prof. It's quite interesting what you've unpacked. Firstly, we will allow people to ask questions. There's a facility to raise a hand and be able to put a question through. And then obviously there's also a facility to put a question in writing. So
no problem.
At least you, but one of the questions I'm having, as you correctly pointed out a number of things, is if you were to look at it from the personal point of view versus an organizational point of view, what is it that an individual sitting in any level of an organization that he needs or she needs to probably be mindful of, or be planning, or be starting to do to prepare himself or herself for the unavoidable VUCA world? That's a starting point. And the second point is, at an organizational level, what should organizations prioritize to be able to absorb this unavoidable change you have just clearly described?
Thank you. Thank you, Stembiso. It's a brilliant question, and this is something that I've been extensively involved in, is to say, okay, because an organization, it's like I just said, its most valuable asset is its people, or its people. And if we do not understand that, the first thing, how to prepare myself personally. And we just talked about organizational psychology, and remember we talk about organizational behavior, and we talk about our own behavior. First and foremost, we must understand is, what is my preference? What is my current mental model? Do I understand technology? So the first thing, Stembiso, is to say, you know what? Technology is here to stay. Do I understand technology? Do I understand the basics of technology? Can I understand, for instance, what is it that is expected on technology? Can I work with emails? Can I work with Zoom? Can I do the basic stuff on my phone, like basic requirements? What is the basic requirements? So I need to understand the basic requirements, because that is going to be a given. The other thing that you've asked him to say on an organizational level is that we need to start and have discussions. We need to come together and get what we call a stakeholder. All the stakeholders need to come together and say, you know what, let's start talk about the influence of COVID. Let's talk about the fourth industrial revolution. What is the influence on our organization, and how are we gonna handle this? Because we cannot have a top-down pressure where, or sometimes even where the organization leadership do not understand technology. They do not understand the fourth industrial revolution. So for me is to start with negotiations, start with groups where we start discussing all the influences, and also start brainstorming some ideas how to deal with that. And remember, it's about outcomes. And if we say this fourth industrial revolution going to change the world, there's a certain outcomes, then we need to understand what is the input that we need to put in, what is it that is going to be expected, what is the process that we're going to follow, the methodologies that we're going to follow. Because if we say that technology is here, but the organization do not have technology, it's going to cost us bandwidth, it's going to cost us all these things. Those things must be discussed at organizational level. And what is the effect that's going to have on the people? Because you cannot expect somebody on individual level to do online work and go home, but there's nothing back and paying for that person's bandwidth for all those things.
Okay. Thanks, Prof. Thanks. No, it does make sense. One of the things you've mentioned at the beginning of your talk was the fact that people seem to be amazed or awoken by the COVID pandemic, which is correctly the case. But you also seem to suggest that the change to the VUCA world is not something that is new. It's something that has been steadily being adopted, as you have correctly outlined it. So the question is, what is this post-COVID situation that people then talk about? Because it seems as if at the same time we are saying there's no post-COVID, because of the gradual change that was already taking place long before COVID. So COVID then is maybe seen as a catalyst of enabling and expediting this change. But what do you talk, or what do you describe to people as post-COVID situation, which is not necessarily the end of epidemic, but which is a beyond the epidemic kind of situation? If my question is clear, Prof.
No, thanks again, Stembiso. I like the word that you said, post-COVID. I think we need to be honest with one another. I mean, if you just go onto Harvard Business Review, and you're going to read the articles that's been published along, and you go on to Deloitte, you go in PricewaterhouseCoopers, and you're just going to read the reports and the suggestions that have been made to HR, especially to HR, on the VUCA world and the fourth industrial revolution, and that we need to get ready and we need to prepare our worlds. But, you know, like any world, we were reluctant to believe it. I think what you just said to me, Stembiso, is that COVID-19 was a wake-up call for me. Is to wake up and shake us, really to shake us and say, you've been warned, but you didn't believe. And that is something that we as HR sometimes lacking. We don't believe something is going to happen to us. It's like I'm warning you that you need to prepare, you need to be safe, but you go out there every day and say, nothing's going to happen to me until it's happening to you. So that is what the fourth industrial revolution, I mean, if you're just going to go into the history of where it started already, preparing, if you go at MIT, when was MIT established? When was Harvard established? How did it start using technology? If you think about the things that was being said, that the world of work is going to change and this is going to be happening. COVID was for me just a wake-up call. And we need to wake up, really wake up and say, you know what, let's rethink the role of HR. Let's rethink technology, not for technology because we have to plug in and we have to have a computer, but what is the role of HR and talent? And remember now, your new millenniums that's going to join. You need to unlock your device to do this. When you're going to join the new world of work, we need to understand the millenniums, they understand technology. But if the organization is not prepared to absorb those people and give them what they want, they're going to leave that organization. So COVID-19 is for me, was just a rude awakening call. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it does. And we also talk about other things, Prof. During the COVID-19, the new phrases, I should call them, social distancing. Some of the phrases that are coming in, obviously, it also allude to a little bit, if should I say, a more of decentralized groupings, because people shouldn't be together more than X number, depending on the kind of an occasion. But at the same time, we've been talking a lot about borderless economies and globalization. And these some sort of contrasting aspect, globalization and social distancing, collaboration, and decentralization.
Yeah, I think, Stembiso, you're quite right. It is contradictory, but also it also makes us cautionary because globalization is happening, but nobody in our definition of globalization and also in diversity where we talk about it, nobody said you can't do it through technology. Remember, now technology just makes sure that the social distancing also get us ready to become more aware that we can, through technology, now collaborate. So the collaboration tool, in order to make sure that we have social distance, can become through technology, through what we currently are doing. We have social distancing, yet we're communicating to each other. And that means also that right around the globe, people can now zoom in, they can plug, they can talk to us, and that is the thing that that is a contradiction. But also with what we are talking is to say that COVID-19, there's going to be a time that it's going to be finished, that it's going to be another level or level one again. But the wake-up call is to say, you know what, we need to prepare that it's not going to be business as usual. We need to define, if we say no business as usual, what is that business going to be? And it's going to be the disruptive, it's going to be volatile, like we talked about, this whole VUCA world. It's going to be complex, like we just said, it's going to be complex. Sometimes there's going to be interaction, sometimes it's going to be distance. So we need to prepare for this. And if we say we're preparing ourselves, our organization, how do we prepare it if tomorrow there's another COVID-19? Are we ready for that? So those are the things that we need to discuss and take very seriously for the new world of work, Stembiso.
Two last questions from me, Prof. As we engage, I'm also observing if there are any other questions from our visitors or from our attendees. The one question you made mention of a traditional office landscape is going to change. That is number one, and I'm just seeking to unpack that a bit further because it sounded a bit loaded. What exactly does that mean? Number one. Number two, maybe there's three questions. The third one I'll just add now. The second one is, you spoke about policies. Does this call for some review on the legislation framework in terms of labor engagement? And number three, one of the topics which I know both of us love dearly to engage on is, what does this mean for the learning method, styles, technology, and frameworks for individual and organizations? If you can maybe comment on those three.
Thank you, Stenby. So again, sure. I think we can just talk on those 3 points for a day long, talking about this and how it's going to change the landscape. I think traditional office, this is something that we are used to. And if we talk about traditional office, is to say we are so used to go somewhere, and that is our space and the tradition to say, and that is what you just said. There's a policy that says, you know what? You need to arrive 8 o'clock at work and you need to finish 5 o'clock at work. And if you just seen currently, or I've been involved in consultations with a lot of organizations where they changed their policies with regards to outcomes based. And the policy says, this is the outcomes that you need to achieve. I don't care whether you're at office, but as long as you achieve the outcomes. So, because there's the debate, if I'm at office, do I do really work or what do I do at office? It's not because a lot of people go to office to sit from 8 till whatever, till 5. And my question is, what is the outcomes? And this is the challenging question, the tradition of going to work, going to an office. There's a lot of, I mean, if you think about huge industries that says, no, wait, it costs us less to set up an office at home where people have access to a computer and we give them certain things they need to complete at the end of the month. And therefore we pay them what we call ABC, activity-based costing. This is the activities that they need and they cost us and we pay for that. So there's a lot of new changes in the landscape of traditional office. And a lot of offices now also, some of the banks, big banks in South Africa also now currently says, you know what? We are now doing what we call a workstation. You book a workstation and you can work from home and you can do all your work from home and you log in. And if you want to come to office, you book a workstation and you come to work. So that's the tradition. The other thing that you talked about, Stem, is it's very important, but we know government sometimes is lacking behind. So policies, and you're right, you're so right. Business world will pick this up and you're going to see a lot of changes and in contracts, but government needs to pick up the pace because the new landscape need to change and policies need to change then as well. Legislation, especially when it comes to legislation and when it comes to labor relation, that's going to be a huge debate in the new millennium, in the coming decade or so, because how are we going to remunerate our employees? I mean, if the standard policy, I give you a 8 to 5 job, but that is the discussion that's going to come, because policy and how we're going to adapt to the new VUCA world, that's going to be an interesting discussion for the future world of work. And you are right. Yeah, I had this morning a very, very interesting discussion again on this whole thing of learning and the learning methodology. The question that I'm asking, and this is what I did a PhD on, is to say, the question that I'm asking to people is to say, okay, if you go to our taxi industry or you go to people that can do flying, a lot of people are driving cars without a license. Now, and they do it well. I'm not talking about the people that now are reckless. That's not what I'm saying. So my question is exactly, if we're going to look at online learning, if we talk about competency and competency assessment, it's going to be more on the on the what we call the psychomotor ability, where we're going to have simulations and tests on the simulations. Because remember, the algorithm and all those things for online learning, they can measure all those things. Again, if it's outcomes based, how do we measure the outcomes? And also now, again, studies is going to be different. Online learning is, or technology is going to drive us to come up with innovative manners in how to measure authentic ways of people doing certain things. So yeah, technology is going to change. We are currently testing also some technologies. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting in also challenging universities to change their mode. Remember the mode of teaching, how we know it. I mean, if you go back to Harvard, if I can take Harvard or any university, the reason why the classes was run from the way we do it, they were because of we were in the first, if we called it, remember the first industrial revolution was the agriculture role. So they have to, and there were no cars, there were no trains, there were no transportation, so that people can move to and from universities. So it was very easy. So I had to drop my kid at the school or at the university. Then I had to pick him up again when the harvest was coming, so they can work in the lands. That's how why we have got the semester system. Go read about the history, how it was created. Then you see the semester system was in another era. It was created and we adapted that, and that became habit, and that habit became policy. That policy then became law. But I can tell you now, the new landscape is rapidly changing. So the new online and how we're going to do online learning is going to be great, so that you can write test at any time. You can write exam anytime, and that you can revolving. The technology can change that immediately. So it's going to be. I'm getting excited. It's going to be totally new how we see it now.
There's a question from one of the attendees, Deboko. Say, good day, Prof. His question is, how can new and upcoming Asian organizations best prepare themselves for the adapting of working online? You mentioned that there won't be any looking back to working in the space of offices. What then? Are there or are the best tools that these new companies can work with in the world of online working?
Yeah, yes, Tembiso, sure. Yeah, there's I can just tell you there's organizations. I mean, if you think about it, like for instance, let's take Facebook or you take Google. And not everybody's coming to work. I mean, they work anywhere, anytime, anywhere. Microsoft, you can work. I mean, Google Ads. Somebody is working somewhere on. And I mean, if you think about it, think about open source, where anybody have access to the open source and can work on it at any time and send it in. So a very good question, because like I've said, again, don't go and think that, let's forget about the tools. Let's forget just for a moment about that. What I want to get organization for first, when they get back, is to start negotiations, talk to each other, start and say, okay, what is it that we are producing? Let's look at our vision, at our mission. Let's look at our strategic objectives. If we look at our strategic objective, this is what we need to do in order to achieve organizational success. But if we look at 1, 2, 3, these 5 or 6 or 10 or 12 objectives, how can we as HR get technology that can get people to do 1, 2, 3? Does this gonna expect to have full-time people? How is it that we're going to achieve our organizational objectives? And yes, I can tell you now, as you know, Stenbisho, there's tremendous tools out there. For instance, for tracking and I mean, and there's a lot of open source and free tools, even free tools that you can employ, or you can put it into your current systems that can track people, that people can look. There's enough technology out there to support, and that you can integrate and build something online for your people. So yeah, very good. Thank you very much for that question. I hope this gives you some background.
There's two other questions coming in, Prof. One of them is coming in offline. Is the government is one of the biggest employers, as we know. If we talk about organizations, are we also implying that government, as the biggest employer, need also to acclimatize to these changes quicker than they normally do under normal circumstances? That's a question number one. And then another question from our attendee online as well to me. It says, how do you think people will be held accountable with online way of making their targets if most of their customers want to have meetings online? So there's two questions, Prof, for you.
Okay. Just again, the first one, Stembiso, I just want to get my head around the first question was what?
The government being the biggest employer. So when we talk about organizations having to acclimatize to these changing circumstances, environments, and phenomenons, is government also expected to acclimatize as quick, given the fact that historically they are the very slow elephant to acclimatize in almost anything?
Yeah. I think, yeah, thank you, Stembiso. This is a debate on its own, and I think government should be the trendsetters. Government should not be should not follow behind, like you rightly said. Government, yes, it's a debate that should government be the biggest employer. Government should not be. Government should create opportunities for businesses to be created and employ people. So that's a different mindset that people think government should be the biggest employer. So yeah, they employ people. We do understand that. But government should not be the biggest or the only. So that means something is wrong somewhere. If you go to any Western or you go to America, wherever, government is not the biggest employer. So businesses should employ people, and government should allow and should open policies and should open the debate on what is it that government can do from its side so that businesses can be established and business can employ people. So from an HR perspective, that to me is very important, that government should be proactive and not reactive. Government should actually be on top of COVID, should be on top of guiding and allow people, not keeping them away from doing what they should be doing business, and be innovative, be creative. I can tell you now, internationally, I've been on the online. There's so many now new things happening and new businesses being established because of COVID, and yet we are behind. Because we see government as the employer. No, we should be on top of COVID. We should have been developed tools. We should have created new entrepreneurial environments where we then said, how do we establish and how do we create a new business environment for this new world of work that is coming? Right? I think that is very important to me. I think that the whole thing on how do you think people will be held accountable with online way of making their targets if most of their customers want to have meetings on again, if people want meetings online and you have to targets again, you have to be in every job, in everything that we are doing, even in mine. I mean, my students and my consulting, it's 24/7. But again, when you have to do technology, you need to understand there's still a structure to it. You can still structure meetings, but the question is, you don't have the beauty of it. It saves time because you don't have to go to the customer. You can do it in anywhere, anytime. So you have to structure it, and it's a habit that we need to learn to say, okay, you know what? We need to train people. We need to make people aware that this is the time slots, this is the scheduled time that I'm going to have. To make sure that this is when I'm going to have my meetings, set up my meetings. I mean, you had 2 o'clock a meeting. This is a Zoom meeting. You schedule it for 2 o'clock and we link in on it. So you produce something for us. That is something we have to now train our people. It's a new mindset. And then also, if we talk about outcomes, that is very important. What is the outcomes? Because remember now, outcomes have to be stipulated now. It needs to be measured now. There needs to be measured. Because some of us are doing so many things at the same time. I don't know sometimes how we get it, how we do it. And it's not measured. With the new technology, we have to measure, and we need to take thinking, we need to put some thinking into it and to say, okay, how are we going to put measurement and metrics into our outcomes that people need to achieve? So those is going to be the new things in the new world of work, Stevie.
So in your own words, Professor, are you saying this is just a beginning of substantial discussion that needs to happen amongst employees within organizations and poke and prepare the individuals for the new era, be it of work or for the new era of living?
Yes. Steve, this is, remember we talk about the culture, a mindset. Now, if you come with something new to any organization and you do not involve your employees, and we do not debate and come up with ideas and suggestions and explain to them, and we all understand that COVID, it happened. We all understand that there's a technology or there's a disruptive, but let's explain it, let's understand it, and what can we do as an organization to overcome this? What can we do? What is it that from an organizational side, what is it that the organization can do in order to equip us, to empower us to be this disruption, so that we are prepared, that we are equipped, and especially from HR side, how do we help and develop this new mindset for organizations to be this new disruptive world?
Prof, I think, yeah, Prof, thanks very much. I think for the sake of time, as you have correctly said it earlier, this topic, these topics and subtopics, we can discuss them for days and hours on end. Let me take this opportunity, in the absence of any further question, to thank everyone who have tuned into this, another exciting session for the continuing discussion of where are we going with our working pattern, the new landscape. I like the question, the new office landscape, the cultural way of, the different ways of looking at things, the change of the culture. The VUCA world is now a reality, and there is no post-COVID scenario. Post-COVID is already now, because as you are correctly saying, whatever we need to be able to adopt now need to be the one that set the scene and the tone for how we do things going forward. So let me thank everyone who's tuned in, and then also like to thank you, Prof. We are very honored to have you in our midst in terms of sharing these insights. And I can hear the passion you are speaking with on this subject, and I'm sure this is not the last engagement we are going to be having on this. I see let me just check, there's another question. Oh yeah, so I think it's another complimentary comment to say thank you for thoughts and provoking session. So without further ado, thanks, Prof. Let me allow you to go back to your work. As you have said, sometimes we do so many things, we don't even know how we get them done. So I think, again, we have pulled through this particular one. So go back and do your work. We shall touch base and engage on the subject again in future.